Brock Osweiler, ESPN analyst, former quarterback on many different levels, joining us. First of all, just got to ask, I have to ask, are you in Montana yet, or you still out east, or where are you at right now?
Yeah, I wish I was back home in Montana, but I'm not quite there yet. My week started at home in Arizona, where I live in Scottsdale. Caught a plane back to Connecticut, back to where the ESPN studios are. Have some studio shows to be on this week, and Thursday we'll head back to Arizona, change out the travel bag, grab a new suit, and head up to Bozeman for this great football game we're all going to watch on Saturday.
Awesome. I'll get more to your job in this game in just a second, but first I want to ask about you. Kind of growing up in Montana, Flathead High School, all that good stuff. Did you ever grow up attending a Cat Griz game before? What do you remember if you did? What were your early takeaways as a kid like that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I never made it to a Cat Grizz game because my parents always said that they were too rowdy for my brother and I, two little kids to be able to go to. I think that was just their excuse to say that they wanted to go have fun and not worry about us, which I totally get. But I did. I grew up a Montana season ticket holder in the North End Zone. Used to go to games with my mom and dad and brother all the time. And honestly, probably some of my best childhood memories. I absolutely loved rooting for the Montana Grizzlies. So the fact that I get to come home to the great state of Montana and witness and call, I guess for that matter, the first ever, Brawl of the Wildcat Griz in the playoffs, it's extremely special.
Well, I was curious, because you were a big deal coming out of Flathead. Was there interest from Montana State? Obviously, you went to Arizona State, but was there interest there?
There was a lot of interest, and in fact, I remember, both coaches from both schools offering me scholarships, getting the phone call, and in fact, I do have to admit, no offense to Montana State, I was grateful for that offer. Didn't really consider that one. But when Bobby Houck called, I thought about staying home in Montana. I really did, and turning down. At the time, I was trying to decide, was I going to play basketball for Gonzaga, or was I going to go play football at either Florida State, Stanford, or Arizona State? But I mean it. When I got that Griz offer from Bobby, I thought long and hard about that one, and it was a tough decision to decide to leave the state.
So you obviously hold Coach Houck in high regards, and it's kind of unbelievable. He was here recruiting you, and he's
Yeah,
still here once again doing the job
yeah.
again. So, can you talk about him and kind of what he's done here in Missoula?
Yeah, I think Coach Houck's run, as the head man in Missoula is it's unprecedented. When you look at everything that he's accomplished, from the win total, to the Big Sky Conference titles, the playoff wins. There's just one thing that's been evading him, and that's the national championship, right? And he's right there. He's got one of his best teams, I personally think, that he's ever had. He's got a great chance to go check that. And if he's able to get a national title victory, I mean, he's pretty much done it all. And he's certainly going to go down as one of the all-time greats, not just, in Montana or the Big Sky Conference, in Division I football history. I mean, he really will. And then, on the flip side, I think what Brent Vigen's done, down at Montana State, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, if you look at the football teams he's assembled, I think he's done a fantastic job of evaluating talent. You look at how talented his football teams have been the past couple of years. He's sending guys to the NFL. They're competing for national titles. They won the last two Cat Griz games. So I think both programs are kind of at an all-time high, and Saturday's game is just going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Vigen and Houck, they've accomplished everything but the national title. Now, I've interviewed Houck quite a few times. He'll never talk about the game after the game that he's playing. But
Yeah.
is that on their minds, knowing, hey, if we win this one, we get another shot at a chipper here?
It has to be, just being in a position where, I made it to the state semifinals in high school. I've been part of teams that have played in an AFC championship game and then gone on to the Super Bowl. So, Um, I'd be lying if I said you don't realize what's at stake and what that next game is. And that's part of the challenge, for both of these teams. I mean, you can't look past this game. You can't look past a single play. If you take your eye off the ball for a half a second Saturday, that might be the difference in winning or losing. And I really think that this football game is going to come down to, maybe a handful of plays, maybe a half dozen plays. And that's what's going to decide who wins or loses this one. I mean, just look at Cat Griz back on November 22nd. I mean, it really boiled down to the interception by Ayat, a missed field goal, and a penalty that took away a touchdown for Montana. I mean, there's 3 plays. That's the difference in the game. So I might be generous saying a half dozen. It was 3 plays just a couple weeks ago. So they know what they're playing for. They know a national title berth is at stake, but I don't think either of these teams, and these are too good of coaches. They're not going to allow their ball players to look past the game on Saturday.
Talking about the rivalry itself, it's taken seriously between the fan bases. But as a former player, you were a Sun Devil. You had an interstate rivalry that had a trophy to go with it. Do players kind of get up for these rivalry games a little harder? I mean, the Montana State guys, they were stomping on the Griz logo after they beat Montana Missoula just a few weeks ago.
They do, and yes, I can speak to the Territorial Cup, Arizona State, but to me, the Brawl of the Wild is so big because so many of these players, I mean, the majority of the players are born and raised in Montana, and they dream of growing up and being a Cat or being a Griz, not being a Alabama Crimson Tide or a Michigan Wolverine. You grow up watching the Cats and the Griz. And so to be a part of that, and then to know that, if you watch the majority of these players when they're done with their careers at these respective schools, they make home in Montana. They stay, so you're born, you raised, you play there, and you stay. So, these are football games that are talked about for your entire life. And they mean so much. It truly is a state divided. Cats don't like the Griz, and the Griz don't like the Cats, and we all know that, and that's what makes it special. And everybody has their opinions. So we've all seen the high stakes that this game creates in the regular season. Now just crank that up by about 1,000 times, and that's what it's going to be on Saturday afternoon.
Brock, as a former Montana guy yourself, growing up playing football here, just what's it mean for you to be part of this broadcast team calling the highest stakes Cat Griz game ever?
Yeah, it's really special. I don't know if I can actually put it into words. I know I didn't play for the Cats or I didn't play for the Griz, but I grew up in the great state of Montana. On Saturdays, we watched the Griz, we watched the Cats. We didn't care about any of the other college programs in the country. So the state means the world to me. To have these 2 programs, I just got goosebumps talking about it. To have these 2 programs square off in a national semifinal on ABC for the whole country to witness what this rivalry is, and then to have a national title berth at stake. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't get any more exciting. The fact that I get to be there and be a part of it means the world to me.
And then for you, how much time goes into prepping as a broadcaster for this one? How much work goes into on your guys' end, and how familiar do you believe you are, with these teams at this point?
Well, today's only Wednesday, and the hay is not in the barn until what is it, about 2 p.m. Is it 2 p.m. Saturday when the game kicks? So I still have some time to get ready. But to answer your question, it truly takes every single day of the week. So as soon as you know what the matchup is, which we knew Saturday night, you get to work on Sunday, and by 6 days later when that game kicks on a Saturday afternoon, if you want to be any good at your job, you better be versed up on the teams, all the players, the coaches, the history, the storylines, what took place during the season. So I would say this, I mean, it's way more prep than I ever envisioned when I got into this job. But in my opinion, that's the only way to be able to do the job right. And then, I take a lot of pride in doing right by the players on the field and the coaching staff, they deserve the best broadcast possible, and that's what we plan on giving them.
For you, you devoted your whole life to football. You made it to the NFL, and that takes every ounce of effort. So to go from football player to analyst, I want to say in 2022, what was that transition like for you?
Well, I'll say this: playing football, I think, is a lot easier than broadcasting football. They're two totally different worlds. Broadcasting was something I never envisioned myself doing. Never had a plan to do it. But when my professional career wrapped up, I was out of the game a couple of years, and I missed it. I missed it dearly. Football is the greatest game on the planet, and I wanted to be involved with it in somehow, some way. I explored scouting. I explored coaching, things to do with the front office in the NFL. And ultimately, it just felt like broadcasting was the best thing for me to get into that gave me balance with my young family, my daughters, so I can still be present for them, but remain involved in the game. And so off we hopped into broadcasting 4 years ago, and it's leading us to Bozeman, Montana on Saturday afternoon.
I find one of the big storylines of this one is, you got this red hot Griz offense. They got a quarterback and a wide receiver who are on the Walter Payton watch list, and then they got a running back who was the Big Sky Offense Player of the Year. But then other side of that is Montana's defense is no joke either. Caden Dowler, Defense Player of the Year. So can you talk about that matchup? What do you like early in this one?
Well, listen, it's a fantastic matchup. And that's ultimately why I said earlier, I think this game comes down to a handful of plays. I mean, it is good on good, regardless of, is it the Griz offense on the field? Is it the Cats offense on the field? Both sides of the football for both teams are really good. And so the margin for error is going to be really small. I think, ultimately, I think this game is going to come down to if Montana can slow down Montana State's rushing attack. Anybody that's followed these two programs, there's no secret to a Brent Vigen football team. They want to run the ball. They want to control the clock. They want to win the time of possession. They want to protect the football. They want to keep it away from you. And so if they're able to do that, it's going to, I think, be a tough day for the Griz, because if you can't get the Cats off the field, well, how are you going to get the football to all that offensive firepower for the Griz that you just mentioned? So I really think it comes down to, can you stop the run for the Cats? That boils down to, first and second down. Are the Cats able to stay on schedule? Can the Griz get them off schedule? And I think that's a little bit of a game within the game to keep an eye on, because you're right. The Griz are a quick strike offense, tons of firepower. But if the Cats control the clock, the time of possession, because they're able to run the football at will, it's going to be a long day for the Griz.
As a former quarterback who's played in some really big games, I was wondering if you could help put me into the eyes of Kaylee Yacht and Justin Lamson, going into such a big game. What's it like getting out on the field, going under center first time with the stakes this high?
Well, fortunately for those guys, they have tremendous coaches around them. They really do. And coaches that have coached in some big-time moments and big-time stages. So they're going to have their guys ready to go. I think the biggest key for any player, whether it's a quarterback, defensive lineman, whatever that position may be, you have to find a way to realize that this game is no different than all the other games. And your approach needs to remain the same. That's why you have routine. That's why you have process. At the end of the day, all the hype and buildup and anxieties and stresses and excitement, that's all just outside noise that we create. But for the players, when they get on the field, it's what happens in between the white lines. The field size doesn't change. The rules of the game doesn't change. So they need to, just do what they've done all season long, focus on one play at a time. And if they do that and don't make the moment bigger than what it is, which I'm sure that's what those coaching staffs are preaching all week, those guys are going to be just fine, and they're going to put on a show for us.
Brock, I think the number one story coming into this one that I've seen all week is the price of admission. I mean, the cheap seats are going for $600, and if you want to sit on the 50-yard line, it might cost you north of $2,000-$3,000. So, talk to me about that one, especially in the perspective of college fans that might not be familiar with this rivalry, and what's worth the price of admission here.
I would say this. I was I was blown away when I saw the ticket prices, but I also wasn't surprised. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, it just directly reflects what this football game means to, Grizz and Cat fans. They want to be there. They want to be there to support their teams. They want to be there for the historic moment where the Brawl of the Wild takes place in the playoffs for the first time ever. And you kind of couple all of that excitement and two really, really, really good teams where, I mean, it's a coin flip who's going to win this football game. So I think everyone knows they're in for a great matchup, but you pair that with a stadium that holds 20,000 people. Well, it's supply and demand, and so I think that's helping drive the ticket prices up. For example, this weekend, Miami's going on the road to play Texas A&M. Well, they have 105,000 seats, right? So it kind of balances out in some regard. But listen, there's a lot of excitement for this football game. I get it, and it directly reflects in the ticket prices.
You know, all four Dakota schools are out of the way, so the winner of this one is believed to be a heavy favorite in the national championship. You want to give respect to Villanova, Illinois State, what they've done, especially Illinois State knocking out North Dakota State. But what goes into that mindset when, if you win this one, you think you got a good crack at your first title in 25 plus years for Montana and 40 years for Montana State?
I believe it would be natural to take a little bit of a kind of a deep breath if you win this one and just take kind of a half a second, because you're right. In a lot of ways, I mean, these are, with all due respect, like you said, to Villanova and Illinois State, these are clearly the two best teams remaining in the bracket. But with that being said, whoever wins this football game, sure, take that deep breath. Hey, you got past, a massive hurdle. Take that deep breath for a day or two, but then listen, you need to get focused up, and you can't take any opponent lightly. As soon as that happens, that's when you lose, and we all know that. If you played sports at all in your life, you have to treat every opponent the same, treat them with respect. Otherwise, you're going to get burned. I mean, should just look at Illinois State. I mean, they turned the football over 5 times on the road against North Dakota State and find a way to win the football game. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the Fargo Dome, excuse me, it's been one of the most difficult places to play in all of college football. So I know where you're going with this one, but as big as this game and as difficult as this game will be on Saturday for both of these teams, whoever wins, and once again, it goes back to how well they're coached, they're going to get focused for the national championship, and they won't take their opponent lightly.
Totally. I also want to talk to you about this. As a former NFL guy, you had experience playing teams twice a year, division opponents, all that good stuff. So, what goes into that? These two teams saw each other under a month ago, and Cats pulled away with a close win. What goes into that from the winner's perspective and the loser's perspective when you're seeing the same team again?
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you're playing a common opponent, you're going to know a thing or two about them. And in some ways, that's helpful. And in other ways, you really need to do a great job, I think, during the week of self-scouting yourself to say, okay, what do they know about us? What have we shown? What have we shown to them? And how can we kind of play this cat and mouse game where maybe we show something that looks similar, but we're doing different things off of it? So it's kind of a two-way thing. It's helpful to know your opponent, but at the same time, they know you. And so who makes, between the coaching staffs, who makes certain adjustments early on from what they maybe showed back in that November 22nd game to kind of catch the other team by surprise? Something that hasn't maybe been put on tape all season long, that they're not prepared for. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think the most important thing, don't overthink it. At the end of the day, it's football. It's running, blocking, tackling, preventing penalties, protecting the football. It's a simple game that all too often we all try to overcomplicate. Keep it simple. Do what you've done to get to this point, and good things usually happen.
You got a favorite part that you're looking forward to on Saturday, whether it's just being back or watching this game, anything like that?
All of it. Just being back in Montana, breathing that fresh air, and watching two really, really good football teams. It's going to be a physical, tough, just absolute war down there on the field, and I can't wait to watch it.
All right, that's all I got for you. But thanks so much for just taking time with me. And yeah, can't wait to hear you on the call on Saturday.
I really appreciate you having me and can't wait to come home Saturday. Thank you.
All right, Brock. Thanks a lot.